Good
Welcome
morning, Jan.
again. Oh, good morning, James. You're supposed to wait till I introduce you. Let me do my little tap dance. Dear viewer, as you probably know, we had a show scheduled for March this year, Women of Their Word. It's a series of vignettes about Australian women poets. Now, because of a certain virus, the Voldemort, which shall remain unnamed, that had to be postponed. It hasn't been cancelled. It's been postponed. And as the Media and Entertainment and Arts Alliance says, the curtain will rise again. So stay tuned. We'll be living, breathing on the stage before too long. Theatre Redlands at the Redland Museum. Now, we've recently spoken to Donna McGrath, the music director, about how she approaches designing music, selecting tunes and things like that for the production. Music is one of the great mood evokers. Now, the other thing that evokes mood and emotion and manipulates your feelings shamelessly is the lighting. It's another one of those subtle, beautiful, essential elements. And today we're speaking with our lighting designer and operator, James Auld. Now it's your turn.
Good morning, Jan. At last I get to talk.
Yeah, you've got to fight. Thank you, James. The question of lighting and mood, they really go together, don't they? And you and the music director must work together very closely to make sure you're both headed in the same direction.
We always liaise. What I tend to find happens is that the director tells me how the things are going to be placed on the stage, and that I get the script, and then there's a discussion with the music director about what music is going to be used, and then I think about the mechanics of the lighting. And the mechanics of the lighting are very much restricted by what is available, both to the theatre group involved and in the venue. And in some places, you're making do with 3 or 4 lights. In other places, you can get a full, almost a full theatre set of lights, which makes a huge difference. But when you're limited physically with the number of lights and the control, you have to decide how you're going to make best use of those lights to produce the effect with limited hardware. It depends on the style of show to some extent too. So with a musical, you tend to have much brighter lighting. With a dramatic show, you might do with only 2 lights focused on the actors' faces from different angles. So it varies very much with the dramatic nature of the piece.
Could you give me an example, James, of a basic lighting set that you'd use for a certain emotional scene? Now, hang on, let's think of something from the play. Now, Donna gave us a piece of music that she was going to play for a poem called Night by Leona Kyling. And it's talking about standing, in the darkness, watching the lights out there and the moon and the breeze on the cheek. And it's very sort of soft and fluid. What sort of lighting, not any of your special secrets, but basically what sort of lighting would you use for that?
Well, it's important to see the actor's face, at least, or at least the face and the torso. So I would aim for a diagonal light or 2 diagonal lights lighting up the top part of the actor without hitting the back of the stage. So
That's why you make them diagonal, so that they don't bring the background forward?
And so we don't get terrible shadows under the chin. It's not very flattering. But also, having lit the face, you can then change the background colour without changing the actor. So if you're looking at a night sky, you might have a blue or violet background, and then as they talk about maybe a warmer scene or an autumn scene, that background segues into a warmer tones, leaving the actors as in the foreground still.
Wow, there is so much to it. Do you do lighting directors and music directors ever come to words over what a particular scene needs? I'm going to play this sort of music. Those lights don't match. No, your music doesn't match my lights.
No, generally not, Jan, because we have an understanding of the mood of the piece, and there's more more often there are words between the director and the lighting director. He says, no, I want that piece of furniture there. And I say, well, it's in the way, you're going to get shadows. So, that's one of the issues we have with limited lights, is that you do get shadows from people in the front row and people in the back of the stage, upstage. So,
so that's another piece. So you've actually got to negotiate with 5 different elements. There's the lighting equipment that you've got. There's satisfying the audience and tweaking their emotions at will. There's the music director who's also setting moods. There's the set designer who's possibly, as you say, putting furniture in places that you just can't work around. And then there's the super ogre, the director. You've got to deal with all of those. That's a big ask.
On top of that, if you really, if you're getting a more complex show, you have the colours of the furniture and the set and the costumes.
So you've got to deal with the costume, the wardrobe too.
If it really comes down to it, you just put some warm light on the stage and everybody looks happy. That's...
Don't simplify the magic,
I've done that in the past. I did lighting for the Mikado with 6 lights. That was it. It was a big stage and it was a full chorus and we just had 6 lights. So
you've got 3 of those have already gone on the 3 little maids from school, so it only leaves you with another 3.
Well, we were flat out lighting the stage with 6 lights, but it worked quite well. We had limited colour change between the lights. There was
is it the old thing of... Sorry, James, I keep interrupting you. Finish.
That's right. I'm used to that.
Yeah, I'll let that pass with that comment. Other than my husband says that too. My enthusiasm, I think, overruns my good manners sometimes. The necessity is the mother of invention, that old saying. That would work too, wouldn't it, with a very limited rig at your disposal?
Very much so. And that's one of the challenges I enjoy, being able to beg, borrow and invent something that works for the job. We needed a television screen with flickering lights on the actors' faces for one day of the year. Yeah. So, or a barbecue with flickering lights, and developing something that looks realistic on stage is an interesting challenge.
Yeah, I've got a little anecdote for you that's nothing to do with this, but it's interesting. New Theatre in Sydney went out to the Western mines that were, this is in the 30s, I think 30s or 40s. There was a dispute and the miners had locked themselves down in the mines. And as a show of support and to give them something other to think about, the theatre actually took their current show out and performed it in the mine for the miners, and all the miners had were their miners' lamps to light the stage. Now that was a lighting challenge. James, how did you approach this particular show, The Women of Their Word? You've got 8 separate vignettes of 8 very different women.
It's very much limited by the amount of equipment that we can incorporate into the venue, Jan. Control isn't an issue, but the number of luminaires and their sighting is critical, and generally in the museum hall we're limited to 3 lighting positions because we have to make holes in the ceiling. No, not quite as bad as that. We have ceiling panels we remove and false panels we put in that hold the lights. But it is a rigging challenge, very much a rigging challenge. It's a lot of work. I spend nearly a whole day doing the rigging for a show, which is why I don't like pulling it down and putting it up again.
No.
When it's directed, if we can leave it there, it's great. There's no trouble to run the show, but getting it installed, the mechanics of installing it can be quite challenging.
James, this has been absolutely fascinating, and as much as I respected you before, I think I even respect you even more now. I shall doff my cap in future and call you Mr. Auld. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh, it's been my pleasure.
That was James Auld, a magician, and also the lighting director and operator for Women of Their Word. Hopefully the show will be on very soon, so stay tuned to the Redland Museum website and Facebook. Keep in touch with us, and we'll see you before too long, living, breathing, and in the flesh. Thanks so much.
The museum